night sky above Earth had never looked so strange. A silver glow shimmered in the clouds, and people across the world stood outside, staring at the silent light that covered the heavens. At first they thought it was a comet or maybe a storm, but when the glow moved like a living thing, fear spread through every city. The air crackled with something that felt alive, a presence watching from beyond. Miles above, in the darkness of space, a fleet of alien ships surrounded Earth. Their design was smooth and curved like blades of glass glowing faintly blue. They were not here to conquer, at least not all of them. Among them, one ship drifted apart, hiding from the others. Inside, a young alien princess named Sarai stood before a broken screen, her pale blue skin shining in the dim light of the control room. Her long hair fell over her shoulders, strands tinted with pink like dawn on a frozen world. She was beautiful, but her face showed only fear and exhaustion. Her small daughter slept beside her, wrapped in a soft gray blanket. The child's breathing was weak, her pulse faint. Sarai touched her gently, whispering words in a language full of echoes and sadness. She had been running for days, escaping her own kind. Her empire, once proud, had turned on her after she refused to join a war she knew would destroy billions. They called her a traitor. Now she had nowhere to go. A loud alarm began to hum through the ship. Red lights flashed. Sarai's eyes widened. The radar showed several warships approaching. Her people had found her again. She bit her lip, looking at her daughter, and whispered, "Hold on, my little star. I will save you." She turned to the ship's console and began typing desperately. The navigation screen flickered, showing a small planet below. Earth. The readings showed it was full of oxygen, water, and life. Primitive compared to her home, but still a place to hide. She pressed the final command, and the ship shook violently as it entered the planet's atmosphere. Flames surrounded the craft as it fell. Clouds turned to fire around her. Inside, sparks flew from the panels and alarms screamed louder. Sarai covered her daughter with her arms, whispering prayers. Then a darkness. The ship crashed deep in the northern woods, far from any city. Trees were torn apart and smoke rose through the cold air. Hours passed before anyone reached the crash site. Jack Turner, a former soldier who lived alone near the forest, was the first to see it. He had been walking back from his cabin when he noticed the orange glow in the distance. His instincts kicked in. It looked like a plane crash, maybe worse. Grabbing his flashlight and an old rifle, he ran toward the smoke. As he stepped into the clearing, he froze. The wreck didn't look like anything built by humans. Its surface shimmered with faint blue light, and strange symbols pulsed like veins across its hull. The air smelled like burnt metal and rain. He moved slowly, cautious, expecting an explosion. But then he heard a sound, a soft cry. Inside the wreckage, he saw her. Sarai crawled from the broken door, her body weak and trembling. Her skin glowed faintly under the moonlight, her eyes bright like liquid silver. In her arms, she carried a small girl, barely breathing. Jack stood frozen. She didn't look human, but she looked alive, scared. When Sarai saw him, she fell to her knees. Her voice was soft and broken. "Please," she said in English, her accent strange but clear. "Help my daughter, come, please." Jack lowered his weapon, his heart pounding. He didn't know if it was fear or something else that made him step forward. He knelt beside her, seeing the child's shallow breath. "Who are you?" he asked quietly. Sarai looked up at him, tears gathering in her eyes. "We are not from here," she whispered. "They will come. They will kill her. And you too if you stay." Jack looked around the forest, quiet, cold, and dark. He didn't see anyone else, but the hairs on his neck stood up. The night felt heavy, like something was watching. "All right," he said finally, his voice rough. "Let's get you out of here." He helped her to her feet and carried the child. The little girl's skin felt cool, almost weightless. As they moved through the forest, Jack kept glancing back, half expecting something to emerge from the smoke. Behind them, Sarai's ship pulsed once, and then exploded silently into blue fire. From far above, in the shadows of the clouds, several alien ships slowed down. Their scanners picked up the faint trace of Sarai's escape pod. One of the commanders, his voice cold and sharp, said, "She is on the surface. Find her before the humans do," but it was already too late. The human had found her first. Jack Turner's cabin sat deep within the forest, far from the nearest town. It was quiet there, a place where no one ever came unless they were lost. He had built it himself after leaving the army, hoping to escape everything. The noise, the war, the memories. But that night, everything he wanted to forget came back, just in a different form. The alien princess sat near the fire, holding her daughter in her arms. The little girl's skin shimmered faintly, her breathing shallow but steady. Jack watched silently as Sarai used a small metal device that glowed green when placed over her daughter's chest. It made a soft hum, and the girl's breathing began to calm. Jack didn't understand what it was, but it worked. He poured a cup of hot water and offered it to Sarai. She looked at it carefully, unsure, then accepted it with trembling hands. Her fingers were long and elegant, her movements gentle but alert. She took a sip and winced slightly, not used to the taste. "You speak English," Jack said quietly, sitting on a wooden chair across from her. "How?" Sarai looked into the flames. "We study many languages," she replied in a soft voice. "Yours was easy to learn. Years ago," she hesitated. "I did not think I would ever need it." Jack nodded slowly. "You said they're coming for you. Who are they?" She looked up, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the firelight. "My people," she said. "The Varine Empire. They rule many worlds. I was supposed to help them start a war against another race, but I refused. They called me a traitor. They killed my guards, my friends. Only I and my daughter escaped." Jack leaned forward, his face serious. "And now they want you dead," Sarai nodded. "They want to erase my name from history. My daughter carries something inside her they fear, something they cannot control." Jack frowned. "Something inside her?" Sarai pressed a hand against her chest, her voice trembling. "She carries the next generation of our kind, born with empathy, emotion, and peace. They see it as weakness, but I see it as hope." The room fell silent. Jack stared at the child, sleeping peacefully, unaware of the danger waiting above the clouds. He took a deep breath and said, "You can stay here for now. No one comes to this forest." Sarai looked at him, surprise flashing in her eyes. "You would help us? Even knowing what I am?" Jack shrugged slightly. "You're a mother trying to protect her kid. That's all I need to know." For the first time, Sarai smiled faintly, a fragile smile, but real. "Thank you." Jack Turner. Hours passed. Outside, the wind howled through the trees. Inside, the fire burned low. Jack sat with his rifle on his lap, listening to the quiet hum of strange alien devices Sarai had placed around the room. They blinked softly, scanning for signals. Suddenly, one of them turned red. A faint alarm sounded, a pulse in the air like a heartbeat. Sarai stood instantly, fear on her face. "They've found us." Jack grabbed his rifle and moved to the window. The forest was dark, but in the distance, faint lights moved between the trees. Not flashlights, but hovering drones, glowing blue. He cursed under his breath. "How far?" "Too close," Sarai said, pulling a small device from her belt. It unfolded into a smooth silver weapon, unlike anything Jack had ever seen. "They will not stop," Jack turned to her. "We can't fight an army. We have to move." Sarai hesitated. "If we run, they will track us again. We must hide underground somewhere they cannot scan." Jack thought quickly. A few miles away, there was an old mining tunnel from decades ago. It wasn't used anymore. "I know a place," he said. "Grab what you need." Sarai wrapped her daughter in a soft metallic blanket and lifted her carefully. Jack grabbed his pack and flashlight. They moved out into the night, the forest alive with strange blue lights above the trees. The hum of alien drones filled the air. As they ran, Jack noticed how quietly Sarai moved, graceful, almost floating. Her eyes glowed faintly in the dark, scanning for danger. The child stirred and whispered something in her mother's language. Soft, musical words that Jack couldn't understand, but somehow felt deep in his chest. Behind them, the drones descended. Blue beams swept through the trees, scanning the ground. Jack pulled Sarai behind a large rock, holding a finger to his lips. They waited, barely breathing. The light passed just inches away and the sound of engines echoed above. Then silence. They stayed hidden for several minutes before moving again, slower this time. The mine wasn't far now. As they reached the old tunnel entrance, Jack moved the wooden boards aside and helped Sarai inside. The air was cold and still. They moved deeper, until the light from outside disappeared completely. Sarai set her daughter down gently and looked at Jack. "Why do you help us?" she asked again, her voice quiet, almost a whisper. Jack looked at her for a long moment. "Because I've seen enough people die," he said simply. And I'm not letting that kid be one of them. Sarai's eyes softened. You are different from what I was told about humans, Jack smirked. Yeah, I get that a lot. Far above the forest, one of the alien ships hovered silently. The commander stared at the scanner reading. The signal had vanished underground. His eyes narrowed. They are hiding, he said coldly. But not for long. Deep below, in the quiet of the mine, Sarai held her daughter close as Jack kept watch by the tunnel entrance, his rifle ready. The night outside grew darker, and somewhere beyond the stars the real war was just beginning. The mine was cold and silent, its walls covered in damp rock and dust. Only the faint sound of dripping water echoed through the tunnels. Jack Turner's flashlight cut a thin beam through the darkness as he moved carefully, scanning every corner. Behind him, Sarai sat beside her daughter, her back against the wall, her eyes glowing softly in the dark. The child slept, but her breathing was still uneven. Sarai watched her, whispering quiet words in her alien tongue. Words that sounded like a song full of sadness and hope. Jack listened for a moment, then turned his attention back to the tunnel. The air was heavy. He could feel it. Danger was close. How long can we stay down here? Jack asked, keeping his voice low. Not long, Sarai replied. They will send search units. Once they start scanning for heat, they'll find us. Jack frowned. Then we need a plan. Sarai looked at him, her eyes tired but sharp. You cannot fight them. They have weapons beyond your understanding. Jack smirked slightly, loading a round into his rifle. I don't need to understand them. I just need to slow them down. For a moment she almost smiled, but it faded quickly. You risk your life for strangers, she said softly. You could walk away. Forget you ever saw us, Jack looked at her. Too late for that. The sound of distant thunder rolled through the tunnel, except it wasn't thunder. The ground trembled. Sarai stood up, holding her daughter close. They're here, she whispered. Jack turned off the flashlight and motioned for silence. From the entrance of the mine, a faint blue glow appeared, moving, scanning, searching. The alien drones were inside. Sarai touched the side of her head, activating a small device near her ear. A soft hum filled the air, and suddenly the glow of the drones flickered. I can distort their sensors, she whispered, her voice trembling. But only for a short time. Jack nodded. Then we make it count. He grabbed his pack and motioned toward a smaller tunnel branching off to the right. There's another exit this way. It might lead us out to the cliffs. Sarai followed him, holding her daughter tightly as they moved through the narrow passage. Rocks scraped against their shoulders and dust fell from above. Behind them, the mechanical hum of the drones grew louder. One beam of blue light flickered close, passing right over their hiding spot before disappearing again. Jack turned back for a moment, aiming his rifle. He waited until one drone came into view, a small floating machine with spinning rings of light. He fired once. The bullet hit the center, and the drone exploded into sparks that lit up the tunnel. The echo of the shot rolled for several seconds. The others would know now. Go, Jack shouted. They ran. The tunnel widened into an open chamber with a hole in the ceiling where faint moonlight spilled through. Sarai looked up, breathing hard. We can climb out, she said. Jack found an old metal ladder buried under some debris. It creaked when he pulled it free, but it held. You first, he said, helping Sarai lift her daughter onto her back. The princess climbed carefully, her hands steady even as the walls shook with distant explosions. Jack followed behind, glancing down. Flashes of blue light were moving fast below. When they reached the surface, cold night air rushed against their faces. They were high on a rocky cliff overlooking the forest below. Smoke from the wreckage still rose faintly in the distance. The stars shimmered above, and far beyond them, strange lights moved, alien ships circling like predators. Sarai knelt, gasping for air. They will not stop, she said. Not until I'm dead. Jack looked around, thinking fast. Then we need to disappear. I know a place in a town about 50 miles from here. I have friends who can help. Sarai shook her head. No, if they find humans helping us, they will destroy everything. Jack crouched beside her. You said your daughter carries something important, something they fear. If that's true, then hiding won't be enough. You'll need to fight back. Sarai stared at him, her eyes full of pain. I am not a warrior anymore. Jack handed her his rifle. Maybe not, but sometimes survival makes you one. She looked at the weapon, unsure, then slowly took it. Your world. It reminds me of what ours once was. Brave but broken. Before Jack could answer, a bright beam of light cut through the sky, a searchlight from above. They both ducked as a massive alien ship hovered overhead, its engines roaring like a storm. The ground shook. Jack pulled Sarai and her daughter behind a boulder as a mechanical voice echoed through the night, cold and commanding. "Princess Sarai of Virene, you are charged with treason against the Empire. Surrender now, or Earth will suffer your punishment." Sarai's breath caught in her throat. Her daughter stirred and began to cry softly. Jack's jaw tightened. "They're threatening my planet now?" Sarai nodded weakly. "They will do it. To them this world is nothing." Jack clenched his fists. "Not if I can help it." He turned toward the forest, his mind already forming a plan. "We'll need to move before dawn. They'll scan every inch of this area by then." Sarai placed a hand on his arm. Her touch was warm, her voice quiet but strong. "You are one man, Jack Turner. You cannot fight an empire." Jack met her eyes. "Watch me." The ship above began to fire small drones into the woods, spreading light across the trees. But by the time they reached the clearing, Jack, Sarai, and the child were gone, vanished into the forest shadows. The hunt had begun. Dawn was still hours away, but the forest already glowed with blue light. Alien drones swept through the trees like silent hunters, scanning every inch of ground. Their soft hum filled the cold air, and every shadow seemed alive. Jack Turner moved quietly through the undergrowth, his breath visible in the mist. He had grown up in these woods. Every path, every sound, every smell was familiar. The forest was his home, and now it was their only shield. Behind him, Sarai followed carefully, her daughter asleep against her chest, wrapped in a silver blanket that shimmered faintly with alien light. The child's breathing was soft now, stronger than before. Sarai's eyes were alert, scanning the forest for danger. Jack stopped at a large fallen tree and crouched beside it. He motioned for Sarai to stay low. The sound of engines rumbled far above, another ship passing over the canopy. The glow of its lights flickered through the trees like lightning. "They're getting closer," Jack whispered. Sarai nodded. "Their sensors grow stronger the longer they search. We can't hide forever." Jack gave her a quick look. "We don't need to hide forever. Just long enough for me to fight back." Sarai frowned. "Fight back? Against a fleet of warships?" Jack smiled faintly. "Not against the fleet. Against their eyes and ears." He opened his pack, pulling out a few old military tools, signal disruptors, wire traps, and small explosive charges he'd kept from his army days. Nothing powerful, but enough to make a difference. Sarai watched him work, her head tilted slightly. "Your weapons are primitive, but clever," Jack smirked. "Yeah, well, humans are good at surviving when we're outmatched." He handed her a small metallic sphere. "Press this button if they find you. It'll release smoke and heat, confuse their scanners. Then you run." Sarai looked at it carefully, then met his eyes. "And you?" "I'll buy you time." For a moment neither spoke. Only the sound of distant drones echoed through the forest. Sarai touched his hand lightly. "You are strange, Jack Turner. You fight for someone you barely know." Jack looked at her, really looked. "Maybe because I've seen enough people run. Maybe it's time to stand for something." They shared a quiet moment before he turned back to his work. He placed the traps along the forest floor, blending them with leaves and dirt. Then he checked his rifle, old, scratched, but reliable. When he looked back, Sarai was kneeling beside her daughter, humming softly. The sound was beautiful and sad, yet calming. Jack didn't understand the words, but it reminded him of home, of something pure in the middle of chaos. Suddenly, a sharp sound cracked through the air, the high-pitched whine of engines dropping low. Sarai stood instantly. "They've found us." Jack grabbed his rifle. Then it's showtime. A beam of blue light shot through the trees, cutting across the ground just a few meters away. The first drone appeared, sleek, silent, glowing faintly. It hovered, scanning. Then more followed, forming a wide circle around them. Jack raised his weapon and fired. The bullet hit the lead drone and it exploded in a shower of sparks. The forest filled with smoke. Sarai pressed the button on the device he'd given her, and thick red vapor burst into the air, confusing the scanners. "Go!" Jack shouted. Sarai ran, clutching her daughter close as more drones descended from above. Jack moved behind the fallen tree, firing one shot after another, hitting anything that moved. The explosions lit up the night, painting the forest in flashes of blue and orange. For every drone he destroyed, 2 more appeared. But Jack didn't stop. He fought like he was back in the war. Every shot precise, every movement sharp. From the edge of the clearing, Sarai looked back. The human stood alone, surrounded by light and smoke, fighting creatures not of his world. Something inside her stirred, respect and something deeper she couldn't name. A loud crack echoed as a drone fired a plasma beam. It struck near Jack, throwing him back. He groaned, his shoulder burned, but he pushed himself up. He wasn't done. Not yet. He grabbed a final explosive from his belt and threw it toward a cluster of drones. The explosion was massive, a burst of white and blue fire that tore through the clearing. The shockwave sent debris flying. When the smoke cleared, half the drones were gone. The others retreated, damaged and disoriented. For now, they had won a few moments of peace. Sarai ran back to him, kneeling beside where he had fallen. "You're hurt," Jack waved her off, grimacing. "Just a scratch." She placed her hand over his wound and her skin began to glow faintly. Jack felt a strange warmth spreading through him, easing the pain. Within moments, the burn faded. He looked at her in disbelief. "What was that?" "A gift from my people," Sarai said softly. "Healing. We used to give it freely before the wars began." Jack nodded slowly, still catching his breath. "Guess I owe you one." Sarai smiled faintly. "We owe each other, I think." Before they could say more, her wrist device began to flash red. She looked down, fear crossing her face. "They are sending ground units now, soldiers, not machines." Jack's expression hardened. "Then they'll regret stepping foot on Earth." He stood, reloading his rifle, the glow of the fire reflecting in his eyes. Sarai watched him, this human who fought without fear, who protected a stranger from the stars. Somewhere above the clouds, the alien commander watched the battlefield through a holographic screen. His voice was cold. "The human interferes again. Kill him first." Down below, Jack and Sarai prepared to move deeper into the mountains. The forest behind them burned faintly, smoke rising like ghosts into the dawn sky. The chase was far from over. But for the first time, the hunted were ready to fight back. The morning sun crept through the mountains, painting the forest in gold and smoke. Jack Turner led the way up a narrow rocky trail, his rifle slung over his shoulder. His clothes were torn and stained, but his eyes were sharp. Behind him, Sarai followed silently, her daughter sleeping again, her small hand clutching her mother's robe. They had walked for hours since the last attack. The alien ships were still above, faint shadows moving across the sky, but for now they were hidden. Jack stopped near a shallow cave hidden behind thick vines. "We can rest here," he said quietly. Sarai stepped inside first. The cave was cool and dark, with a soft hum coming from her small devices as she placed them around the walls. They created a shimmering field of light and a temporary shield. "This will mask our heat for a while," she explained softly. "They will not find us here." Jack nodded and sat against the wall. His body ached, but his mind kept turning. "You said your daughter carries something your people fear," he said. "What did you mean?" Sarai hesitated. Her hands trembled slightly as she removed a small crystal from her belt. It glowed faintly blue, pulsing with the same rhythm as her daughter's heartbeat. "This," she whispered. "This is why they hunt us." Jack leaned closer. "What is it?" Sarai looked at the crystal with sadness in her eyes. "It is a memory core, alive, ancient. It carries the genetic code of the first Virine, and the truth of our past." She paused. "Your world was not supposed to exist," Jack frowned. "What do you mean?" Sarai met his eyes. "Thousands of years ago, the Virine found a small blue planet on the edge of the galaxy. It was young, full of storms and fire. We changed it, just a little. We gave it life. We left something of ourselves here. Your kind were born from that seed." Jack stared at her in disbelief. "You're saying humans came from you?" "In part," she said softly. "You carry our oldest code, the piece of us that still feels, still dreams. My people forgot those things long ago. We became machines wearing skin. That is why they fear my daughter. She is born with the human spark, emotion, compassion, empathy. They call it disease. I call it hope." Jack sat back, the truth sinking in. It explained so much. The way her eyes looked almost human. The strange connection he felt since the moment he found her. "So if they kill her, they kill what's left of their soul," Sarai finished quietly. The cave fell silent. Only the wind outside whispered through the trees. Jack looked at the sleeping child. Her small chest rose and fell softly. For the first time he saw not an alien, but something human, fragile and pure. After a moment, Jack spoke again. If what you say is true, then humanity deserves to know. Sarai shook her head. They would not believe. And even if they did, your world would be destroyed. The Empire does not allow its secrets to live. Jack exhaled slowly. So we're running from gods who made us. Sarai smiled faintly. Not gods. Just fools who forgot what love was. The sound of distant thunder rolled again. No, not thunder. Jack stood instantly. They've found us. Sarai's device flashed red. Their ground troops are near. They are scanning the cliffs. Jack moved toward the cave entrance, peering through the vines. He saw faint blue lights flickering through the fog below. Alien soldiers, tall and armored, moving in formation. Sarai turned to her daughter. The child was awake now, her silver eyes wide. Mama, I'm scared, she whispered. Sarai knelt and kissed her forehead. Do not be afraid, little star. You carry the light of two worlds, Jack glanced back. We can't outrun them this time. We'll have to hold our ground. Sarai looked at him, surprised. There are too many. Jack checked his rifle and smiled grimly. Yeah, that's what they always say. He moved to the edge of the rocks and began setting traps, the last of his explosives, hidden in the soil. Sarai helped, using her own energy weapon to create glowing sigils on the ground. These will delay them, she said. But only for minutes. That's all I need, Jack replied. When the first alien soldier appeared through the mist, Jack waited until the moment was right. Then he fired. The blast echoed through the valley and the trap exploded, throwing the attackers back. The fight began again. Flashes of blue, orange, and smoke filled the air. Sarai joined him, firing precise bursts of light from her weapon. The soldiers fell one by one. But more came, hundreds, their armor glowing with the same eerie blue as the ships above. Jack ducked behind a rock, reloading. We can't keep this up, he shouted. Sarai's eyes glowed brighter, her voice full of desperation. I can draw power from the core, enough to stop them for a moment. But it will drain me, Jack shook his head. No, you'll die, she looked at her daughter, then at him. If I don't, she dies, and so will you. Before Jack could stop her, Sarai lifted the crystal high. Blue light exploded from it, rushing through the air like a storm. The alien soldiers froze mid-step, their armor flickering, their weapons falling silent. The whole valley filled with light, pure living light that reached into the sky. Jack shielded his eyes. When the glow faded, every alien soldier was gone, vaporized into dust. The forest was quiet again, but Sarai collapsed. The crystal rolled from her hand, dim and cracked. Jack caught her before she hit the ground. Sarai, stay with me. Her breathing was weak, her skin pale. It's all right, she whispered. I bought us time. The Empire will come again, but you must protect her. Jack held her close, his chest tightening. Don't talk like that. Sarai touched his face gently. You humans still believe in miracles. That's why you're dangerous, and why I love you for it. Her hand fell away. The light in her eyes faded. Jack sat there in silence, holding her as the morning wind swept through the valley. The little girl crawled to his side, tears streaming down her face. Mama? She whispered. Jack looked up at the sky where the stars still shimmered faintly. I'll keep my promise, he said quietly. I'll protect her, no matter what comes. Far above, unseen by either of them, the main Vereen warship turned toward Earth. The Empire had felt the pulse of Sarai's sacrifice, and they were coming. The final battle was on its way. The valley was quiet after the battle. Smoke drifted between the burned trees, glowing faintly under the morning sun. Jack Turner sat beside Sarai's still body, his rifle across his knees, his face hard but empty. The little alien girl and her daughter sat close to him, silent and scared. She held the cracked blue crystal in her tiny hands, the last piece of her mother's light. Hours passed, but Jack didn't move. His eyes stayed fixed on the sky. He knew they would come. The Empire wouldn't stop until everything Sarai died for was gone. Then, just as he feared, the clouds above began to glow. One by one, enormous ships appeared, breaking through the clouds like mountains made of metal. The ground trembled beneath their power. The child looked up, whispering, "They're here." Jack stood slowly and reloaded his rifle. "Yeah," he said softly. "They're here." The ships hovered in silence for a moment. Then a voice boomed from above, deep and cold. "Human, you have interfered with matters beyond your kind. Surrender the child and you may live." Jack raised his head toward the sky. "Not gonna happen." The voice grew sharper. You cannot fight the Virene Empire. Jack looked down at the little girl. Your mom said something once, that humans still believe in miracles. He knelt in front of her. What's your name? She looked up, eyes bright like silver rain. Lyra. Lyra, Jack said quietly. I'm not your father, but from now on I'll protect you like one. Whatever happens, don't be afraid. She nodded slowly, holding the crystal tight. The first energy blast hit the ground near them, exploding in white fire. Jack grabbed Lyra and dove behind a fallen tree. The air filled with light and dust. Above, smaller alien fighters descended, firing beams that tore the forest apart. Jack aimed and fired, hitting one of them. It spun out of control and crashed into the trees. But there were too many. He reloaded, breathing hard. We can't stay here, he muttered. He looked toward the mountain ridge, high, narrow, and steep. If we can reach the cliffs, maybe. He didn't finish the sentence. He just grabbed Lyra's hand and ran. The ground shook as explosions followed them. Rocks fell, trees split, the air burned. Lyra stumbled, but Jack lifted her into his arms and kept moving. Behind them, soldiers began landing, a tall, armored inhuman. Their eyes glowed blue like fire. Jack stopped near a ridge covered in old stones. He set Lyra down behind him and aimed his rifle again. Stay low! He fired again and again, forcing the soldiers back. But his ammunition was nearly gone. The gun clicked empty. He threw it aside and pulled out one of the last explosives he had. Guess this is it, he said under his breath. Before he could throw it, Lyra stepped forward. Her eyes were glowing, brighter than before, almost blinding. Jack, she whispered. Mama's still here. Jack froze. What do you mean? She held the broken crystal in both hands. It pulsed like a heartbeat. She said, I'm not alone. She said, I have to wake up. The crystal cracked once more and light burst from it, wrapping around Lyra. The air shimmered and a voice filled the valley. Sarai's voice, soft but strong. My little star, the voice said, echoing everywhere. It's time. Lyra's body lifted slightly off the ground. The light spread from her chest into the sky, forming a massive wave that pulsed outward like an ocean of energy. The alien ships above stopped firing. Their engines flickered. Jack shielded his eyes. Lyra! The child's small voice rose, calm and fearless. No more fighting. The light grew stronger, reaching the nearest ship. It didn't explode, and it simply stopped. The metal turned gray, the engines died, and then it vanished like dust carried by the wind. One by one, the rest followed. The entire fleet dissolved into light and faded into the clouds. Silence filled the air again. Only the wind moved. The glow around Lyra dimmed, and she gently floated back down. Jack ran to her, catching her before she fell. She was breathing, alive but weak. He looked around. The sky was clear now, the ships gone. The war was over. Jack held her close. You did it, he whispered. Lyra opened her eyes slowly. Mama helped me. Jack smiled sadly. Yeah, she did. He looked up at the sky. For the first time in a long while, it looked peaceful. The clouds drifted quietly and the sun broke through, warm and bright. Days later, Jack buried Sarai beneath the tallest tree in the valley. He carved her name on a stone and placed the crystal beside it. Lyra stood beside him, holding his hand. Will they come back? She asked softly. Jack looked toward the horizon. Maybe someday. But when they do, they'll find this world ready. Lyra looked up at him. You'll teach me, he smiled. Yeah, you're family now. And family takes care of each other. They walked down the hill together as the sun began to set, painting the sky in orange and violet. For a moment, Jack thought he saw a faint shimmer of blue light drifting through the air, like Sarai's spirit watching over them. Far above, in the quiet of space, a new signal echoed from Earth. It carried Sarai's final energy wave, a message spreading across the stars. Humanity is awake. The Empire heard it. Other worlds heard it too. And somewhere in the endless dark, a few who had once feared now began to hope, because one human had chosen compassion over fear. And one little girl carried the light of two worlds. The beginning of a new age had just begun.